Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app because you want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can catch any of our other 5 live shows throughout the week. If you happen to miss them, you can catch them and watch them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports? You can do so by subscribing to War or Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms. You ready? WARR on Anchor. Once again, WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any opinions during any of our topics during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, I'm giving Lakeena the full boat to give you fools to build a beer boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when she does that. Lakeena, let's start off the Monday edition of Second City Sports because spring is in the air, the weather is turning, and directions are turning for both our Chicago baseball teams. First, let's start off with the Chicago White Sox. They are currently winners of their last 6 games after sweeping away the Boston Red Sox in Beantown over the weekend in Fenway Park. The White Sox took the finale in front of a national TV audience on the Peacock and NBC by the score of 3-2. The White Sox bullpen was strengthened again by Matt Foster and Jose Luis and Matt Souza, who came in and got a 1-out save to preserve the sweep for the Southsiders. The Southsiders got enough hitting, and the bats are starting to heat up. Thank you to Luis Robert, a.k.a. La Pantera, and Jose Abreu, a.k.a. Pito. The White Sox offense, Lakeena, was stellar enough over the weekend. The Red Sox are terrible as of right now. I'm not sure if they're going to turn it around or not. They need to soon. But back to the Southsiders. Pitching was the name of the game. They got a great start from Dallas Keuchel yesterday. He did labor a little bit around that 6th inning, but he did enough to put his team in position to win. They got a great start from Dylan Cease on Saturday, even though the offense didn't come alive until late. Friday's game, same thing, great starting pitch by Vince Velasquez. The offense picked it up a little bit sooner than they did on Saturday. But Lakeena, the White Sox, even though they weren't as dominant as we expected, especially offensively, they did enough to win to keep that winning streak alive at 6.
Yeah, and I think if you're the White Sox, this is definitely the just what the doctor ordered, as you say. You're playing against mediocre and not so good teams. We know the Cubs and their situation. We'll get to them in a second. The Red Sox are not very good right now due to injuries and like production and such. But look, this is what you do. What you're supposed to do. You swept, both the Cubs and the Red Sox. You've won 6 in a row. You have a very tough schedule coming up. You play the Guardians tonight. So look, it's one of those things where you sort of like this is sort of the thing that you're going into a very tough part of their schedule. We talked about the last couple of weeks. Now you're getting production from not only your pitching but your hitting as well. And I think if you're a White Sox fan, you got to be feeling pretty good at where you're at right now. And look, they're getting contributions, like I said, from everybody. The middle relief has been getting out of jams. The Abreu's doing his thing. A 2-run home run, a 2-run double, I should say, that put that game open. So it's you're 14-13. You're a game above 500. So like I said, you're getting to the tough part of your schedule now. And I think this is sort of like the thing that you wanted. You couldn't have asked for anything better right now if you're a White Sox fan.
Let's talk about that White Sox bullpen, Lakina. I know Aaron Bummer was the only blip this weekend in their bullpen. Of course, he's going on the injury list due to a bum knee, no pun intended. So there you go. As far as the weakest link in their bullpen this year, Kendall Graveman has been great, except for one mishap a few weeks ago. He's been great out of the bullpen. Liam Hendricks, as we learned after that Cubs series, his grandfather passed away the day before that
Mhm.
game. That's why he was so emotional on Wednesday. But after his little stint with his injury a couple weeks ago at the Minnesota Twins, where he gave up that home run to Byron Buxton. He's been lights out ever since. So Liam Hendricks, as expected, has picked it up in the closest role. He was unavailable yesterday because he pitched the previous 2 days. And also, too, Matt Foster, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he came out. He came out of the Cub game on Wednesday, leaving almost the bases loaded. In that situation, he was great once again yesterday, getting the Sox out of trouble coming out of that bullpen. Lakina, we talk about Tony La Russa and his decision making at times, and at times it does need to be scrutinized. But right now, he's pushing all the right buttons when it comes to that bullpen. And right now, I believe tonight Joe Kelly is available to make his debut as he comes off the injured list. Of course, Johan Moncada, the same thing. So the White Sox will get some power back in their bat and also much better defensively with his glove. And so right now, as far as their bullpen is concerned, La Russa's pushing all the right buttons for what he has.
Yeah, it's sort of and I think that's sort of, a good thing too. I mean, for what it from where they were now to where they to where they were then now to where they are, I think it's sort of one of those things where you feel like, okay, you know what, everybody's starting to find their groove at the right time.
Mhm,
Abreu's finding their groove. The pitching, Dylan Cease has been really good, so far this year. He's near the top of many of the top pitching categories, including strikeouts, into the top three. And also
mhm.
to some of the other the relief has been really solid too. That has been sort of like the big glaring red light last year. So yeah, everyone's getting hot at the right time. And look, I think if you're if you're the White Sox, you're right there. Everyone's still betting on you to win your AL Central division. We'll get to that in a second.
Mhm.
You got a tough part of your schedule coming up, and let's see. Look, well, we'll see. Let's see how good the Guardians have actually had the White Sox number early so far this year. You're facing a hot Yankees team later on this week, so it's going to be one of those things where you're going to be like, okay, you took care of what you're supposed to take care of. You took care of your business. Now let's see how you do against some of the better teams.
Yeah. A couple more notes about the White Sox before we move on to the Northsiders. Jose Abreu, I know many people have talked about his early struggles throughout his career in the first month or so of the season. He's actually starting to turn it around, and it's due to the production of the guys that have it ahead of him in that lineup with Tim Anderson and Luis Robert. Jose Abreu, as you mentioned, picked it up in these last 2 games, and that's why the White Sox are one of the reasons why the White Sox are still winners right now. And also, too, you have to look at you mentioned the starting pitcher with Dylan Cease, but look at Michael Kopech, who's going to start tonight against Dan Plesac's nephew, Zach Plesac of the Guardians. He's been almost close to lights, and hopefully it depends on how the game goes tonight. I expect Michael Kopech to pitch in the sixth, maybe into the seventh inning. I know that in his last start against the Cubs, Tony La Russa only pitched him 4.5 innings because of the weather conditions at Wrigley. But Michael Kopech has been pretty good as a full-time starter this year. Hopefully, it depends on how the game goes. I expect it to pitch at least six, perhaps into the seventh inning tonight.
And yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said before, I mean, this is sort of one of those things where you're going to the part of your scheduling, and this is going to be very interesting to see where this goes. I mean, I think we'll see what this White Sox team is. Like I said before, this was their problem last year. They
Mhm.
did well against the lesser teams, but didn't do well against the top teams. So this is definitely hopefully this isn't sort of the history doesn't repeat itself. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. And I
Yeah,
know.
and just breaking news real quickly, Keena. The White Sox announced the return of Joe Kelly and Johan Makata to the ball club. They optioned Jake Berger down to Charlotte, and of course, we just talked about Aaron Bummer will be placed on the 10-day injured list.
Okay, so we'll see where that goes there. Now, as far as the North Stars to the Cubs, they unfortunately got swept by the Dodgers this weekend. And look, they're the Dodgers, so it's really hard to they've been hot lately, so it's not too the big surprise. Like you thought that maybe they would have won one, they would have won. I think Saturday's game, especially the double header, but that ended
Mhm.
up not being the case. And unfortunately, the consistency or lack of consistency from the offense Sunday nighter, they got beat 7-1 on the capper on that game. Sunday night baseball too. Just look, I think this. We look. No one thought that the Cubs, when I had a little bit of a streak early on, they're kind of back to being exactly who we thought they were, 9-18, and just the pitching's actually been pretty decent. It's just that they did consistent hitting. You saw that their bats didn't show up these last couple of days. And again, look, they had to face Walker Bueller and Clayton Kershaw, so it's not. It's not
Yeah.
like they were facing minor leaguers, but even still, you thought that maybe they would put a little bit more of an effort.
Yeah, I was at that game on Saturday, the first game. Of course, Clayton Kershaw, he was dominant, but he wasn't Clayton Kershaw dominant, if you know what I mean. He didn't have no hitter stuff, but the Cubs, as you mentioned, that first game they could have scored a couple of runs early, but Kershaw just threw his best stuff in the Cubs offense. I thought they were impatient in that first game. Now that second game, they could have done something, but the Dodgers took advantage of the Cubs' mistakes, especially last night. But back to Saturday's game, we talked about this before, Lakeem. This Cubs offense can put up runs, but it's just in spurts, and they don't do it consistently. Like you said, their starting pitching has been up and down, but their bullpen has been okay. But the bullpen, you can't really blame this on them this weekend. The Dodgers are a better team. All their way had to been carried by the starting staff of the Cubs, and they're nowhere near where the Dodgers are. So the Dodgers took advantage of the Cubs' mistakes this weekend. You really saw it last night as a base running mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
throwing errors back
Mm-hmm.
into behind the backstop. And it was just ugly. A team like the Dodgers, if you make a mistake, those veteran teams will make you pay. And that's what we saw this weekend up on the north side.
Yeah, it's interesting that they scored 8 runs in their first game of the season. Well, yeah, the second game of the season against the Brewers. Of course, they had the
Mhm.
21 spot against the Pirates a couple of weekends ago, but they still got a very high run differential, like -26.
Mhm.
So there's an inconsistency right there. So we'll see. And they've got a pretty tough schedule too. They got to go at San Diego because they start their West Coast road trip tonight against the Padres. So we'll get to them in a second.
Mhm.
Now, like I said, as far as everything else goes, the rest of baseball this weekend, for me, I think the one thing that stood out is, look, I think you're starting to kind of see like teams starting to heat up a bit. The teams that you thought that maybe they could be right there, especially with the condensed spring training and such. We're seeing that. You saw that with the Yankees. I know they lost last night, but they've won 8 of their last 10. So as the Rays as well, the Sox got to face them this week. I know that the Twins are still right there. Though they've won 7 of their last 10. Still,
Yeah,
they're
they
in this
swept
middle.
Oakland. So
Yeah, the middle of the 3 game winning streak. Of course, we know the Dodgers and the Padres. The Rockies are hanging in there too. The Giants are starting to kind of creep up a little bit. The Marlins are starting to kind of fall back to earth a little bit. I know they got a lot of good young players, but that's. But again, I think they're starting to kind of show their worth a little bit. And look, and a couple of accomplishments here. Miguel Cabrera, I should say, became the third player on Saturday, became the third player in MLB history to record 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, and 600 doubles. He had a couple of doubles over the weekend. The other two, Hank Aaron and Albert Pujols. So he joins exclusive company there. So what stood out for you this weekend, Sid, in
as I
baseball?
mentioned, besides the Twins sweeping away Oakland, the Atlanta Braves, the defending world champs, they're off to another shaky start this year, but they took 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee, so that's great for if you're an Atlanta Braves fan. Hopefully, this will turn around for you to get back being one of those teams to be in the NL East. We all know what the Mets are doing so far this year, having the best record in the National League. So if you're in Atlanta, you cannot fall too far behind. And so that was important for them to win that series at home against Milwaukee. And also, too, I wanted to go back to that series with the see, I got to pull it up here. I want to go back to that series with the Blue Jays and the Guardians. I
Mm-hmm.
know that the Blue Jays are hot right now. I know they cooled off a little bit earlier last week, but that's still going to be a dangerous team. Vlad Guerrero Jr. He's a definitely a AL MVP top candidate. Jose Barrios leads that young staff. Of course, yeah, Kevin Gossman, another starting pitcher for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays starting pitching is going to have to come around to help out with that offense. We know that offense for the Blue Jays, those bats are going to bring, but they need some starting pitchers to be consistent to go along with that, help out that offense.
They do, and hopefully they can get that consistently. That was the very problem last year. I mean, they had the bats.
Yeah.
We know they can hit, but the pitching has was an issue. And look, we're seeing that. We're seeing that earlier. Guerin and what he's done. Romano leads the league in saves right now, so maybe Toronto is starting to kind of you
Mhm.
know prove that they can pitch in big situations. You're going to need that against team, especially in the AL East. So hopefully this is sort of like starting to turn a little bit for that pitching. They got to look. They've got a very tough schedule to themselves. We'll get to that in a second. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, I mean, I'm wondering, about the Twins. The Twins are another one of those teams. Look, Josh Winder, he became the fourth pitcher with 7+ strikeouts and 0 earned runs in his first 2 career starts. We'll see if he can keep that up, and we'll see if Minnesota. I know Minnesota sort of, some of the moves they made, during the offseason. We talked about that. I mean, Byron Buxton
Mhm.
is tied for the league in runs. So they are, Minnesota's got, players. Now, can they keep it going? That's the number one question.
And also, too, they're doing it without Carlos Correa, who got injured the other day, so he's going to be
Hmm.
on the IL for a bit. So, well, they're having a tough. They're going to have a tough challenge right now, as they're dealing with injury. So, them and the White Sox are going to be in a race in the AL Central for a while. So the White Sox hopefully get their act together and keep winning consistently, as we hope as White Sox fans. Also, too, let's give some love to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They had the best start to their season since 2004. That was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So first year in the Angels uniform, of course. Now Baseball Hall of Fame, of course. They lost to the eventual world champion Red Sox that year in the '04. But the Angels are off to their best start in 18 years.
Yeah. And we'll see what we keep it up. But look, the Houston is right behind them. They have a 7-game winning streak. So
Mhm.
that'll be another
Yeah.
division to look out for.
And they took
Seattle.
2 or 3 out of a bad Washington Nationals team this weekend.
Yeah.
Juan
So
Soto is good, but the rest of that team is ugh.
yeah, so we'll see what they can do there. That division will probably a lot to say in that division as well. So yeah, so a lot of these divisions are still right there. I mean, we know how the wild the West is. I know the Padres. If you knock out wood, no one gets hurt. I know Manny Machado has been doing his thing with the bats.
Yeah.
But again, what happened? Let's hope he stays healthy. That was the sort of big thing that derailed their season last year. The
Mhm.
Yankees and the Rays, we know what they can do. The Blue Jays, they lost a couple in a row. They didn't have a very good weekend, so they're starting to kind of they're still right there as well. But yeah, so many things with the baseball and everything else with the stats and everything. So we'll see what happens there. But going through the schedule for some of the series that are coming up this week, some of the games are going on right now as we speak. Kansas City and Baltimore, they're tied right now at 1 apiece. You got New York and Texas. That's another early game. They just started
Yeah, a
first
lot of
pitch
rainouts
there.
from the weekend, so these
Yeah,
games are being made up today.
yeah, that's where a lot of them, the early scheduling and such. The
Mhm.
Dodgers continue their East Coast trip. They face Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, and Cincinnati. Again, north to start times there. Oakland
Oh,
and
Cincinnati's terrible.
yeah, oh yeah, they're just brutal, brutal, brutal. Yeah, well, they actually scored 7 runs on Saturday. I
That's
mean,
true.
that's more than they've scored in any their first 25
Let's
games
throw a
this year.
parade.
Yeah, Okay, Oakland and Detroit. Of course, Cleveland and the White Sox. We talked about that.
Mhm.
Rays and Angels. That should be a fun series.
Yes.
Cubs and San Diego. Of course, we talked about that. That'll be the first game of that game. The first game of that series will be on ESPN Plus. Miami and Arizona. Like I said, Miami's got some good players, but they're starting to kind of fall back a little bit. Two teams that have not done very well so far. Expectations were pretty good for them. Philly and Seattle. We'll see who has the edge in that series.
Mhm.
And Colorado and San Francisco. Let's see if I missed any. Boston and Atlanta. That's a 6:20 game on TBS. The first game of
That's
that
tomorrow.
Tuesday night.
Hmm.
That Tuesday night. That Tuesday night game is going to be every week starting this week for TBS. New York and Washington. We'll see if the Mets can keep up
Hmm.
their hot start.
Yeah, get credit to Buck Showalter.
Yeah, he's been. I think it helps that he's actually been following the sport. Being an analyst and such. So
Hmm.
we'll see if these are the Mets. So we'll see if they can keep it up.
And also, too, you have the Blue Jays and Yankees starting tomorrow. These two teams already played 2 series already this
Mhm.
year. The only thing that's disappointing about this matchup, Lakeena, baseball couldn't spread the scheduling out
I know,
for the
yeah,
season. They don't have to
yeah.
play all these divisional games all bunched up throughout the to start the season. But
Yeah, I mean, it's because I guess the scheduling. I guess they had to kind of put all these games sort of bunched up like this. But I'm sure they're going to be sick of each other. Thankfully, they don't play each other anymore till next month after this. I'm sure they'll be glad that they don't have to deal with each other. So we'll see how they do
yeah.
this weekend. Both of them have edges in series so far. So
And also, Houston, they swept Detroit at home over the weekend. They'll go to Minnesota to take on the Twins. Hopefully, they help out the White Sox. And then
mm.
you have Baltimore at St. Louis tomorrow, and then Kansas City at Texas. So those are the series that are kicking off today and tomorrow for this upcoming week around Major League Baseball.
All right, we're gonna do a little round ball after this break. All the series are all the series are tied. Well, there won't be any sweeps, as we'll say that. Including 2 series that are now tied at 2, and there might be some other things going on there too. We'll talk about that. Also, too, MVP was announced, and I'm going to tell you guys why I have a problem. But I'm gonna say it in the nicest way possible. Along with Sydney Brown, I'm Lakeena McGee, the Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you in a bit.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. You have a question or comment for us? Do over our now 90 minutes of extravagance. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in questions and comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's start off with the weekend's action from the NBA playoffs. We'll start off with the results from Friday's games. Of course, the Philadelphia 76ers in the Miami Heat game 3. Miami lost by 20, so the Philadelphia got back in the series with a win on Friday. Of course, the other half of that doubleheader on Friday, Dallas won the first of those 2 home games. As we predicted, they defeated the Phoenix Suns there. We know those 2 teams played yesterday. We'll review those games coming up in just a couple of minutes. But let's go to Saturday's action, Lakeena. In Game 3 of the Eastern Conference second round, it was the Milwaukee Bucks holding on to defeat the Boston Celtics 103 to 101. Al Horford's tip-in at the buzzer was waved off because it went in after the red light came on. Lakeena, Milwaukee started out strong. Boston did their best to hang in there, had a couple opportunities to take over the game in the fourth quarter, but Milwaukee did just enough to win.
Well, and I think, and Giannis actually didn't have his best game, and I think, which is sort of weird to say that's if you're a Giannis fan, but I think this is when the role players and
Well, 42 points ain't too shabby though.
yeah. I mean, Giannis, look, of course but look, the other guys stepped up too, and also too, look, they didn't have their best game, the Celtics. I mean, Jaylen Brown was just, I mean, it was just one of those.
10 points is not going to get it done.
Yeah, that's not going to work. And if you're trying to win it, and they were right there, the Celtics, even despite Brown not having his best game, they were still right there. And unfortunately, look, I mean, Tatum's one of those guys where you're just going to have to. That's probably his worst, shooting of his career in the playoffs. You can't do that, especially when you had your chance to win that game still. Despite Tatum's 10 points, but it's sort of one of those things where you just sort of like, I look, you let an opportunity slip away from you, Boston. That's all you can really say. Drew Holiday had 25 points. You had to help with Giannis. Pat Connaughton had 11 points off the bench. He had some big shots as well for the Bucks. So this is sort of one of those things where we'll see what happens tonight. But again, I know if you're Boston, you're kicking yourselves because you had a shot. You were right there, but again, you couldn't pull it out. So, and Tatum can't afford to have these type of games, especially if you're trying to pull off the quote unquote upset. So he definitely needs to get it together in that sense.
Yeah, both teams didn't really shoot the ball well from two nor from three. Of course, Milwaukee had 40% shooting, Boston at 36, 3-point shooting, nothing to write home about, 27 to 26 for both teams. But it came down to rebounding with the 53-47 edge that the Milwaukee Bucks had. Of course, they made some plays at the end. Of course, Drew Holiday, you mentioned, with the 25-point performance. He had a big-time shot, which put the Bucks up by 3 late in that game. Of course, Boston made some free throws, and then they had a chance to tie it at the end to go into overtime. It just didn't work out for the Celtics. Now, if you're the Celtics, but we'll get into this as we preview the games for tonight coming up later on. But like you said, Boston just had opportunity slip through their fingers. And Al Horford had his best game as a pro in a while with 22 points. I know Jaylen Brown had 27, but you definitely need some more production, not just from Jason Tatum, but guys coming off your bench. And that's been the problem throughout these playoffs so far, especially in this series.
Yeah, I know Robert Williams, he did the best he could. I know he's coming off of an injury. He had 9 points, but he needs to step it up a little bit. Grant Williams off the bench, he needs to step it up. I know Marcus Smart is coming back off an injury as well, but he too has to step up. So I think, look, role players, I think is key, and we're seeing it. Bucks, role players have come up and have stepped up. So far the Celtics, haven't. They're role players. So it's definitely a pivotal game for them tonight. And for me, they have to win this, because if they go down 3-1, I don't want to say the series is over with, but it's going to be a tougher hill to climb for the Celtics to come back.
Now, in the second game of the playoff doubleheader from Saturday, it was Game 3 between the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies from the Chase Center in downtown San Francisco. The Warriors dominated the Grizzlies, defeating them by the score of 142 to 112. John Morant's right knee was nicked up again, and it looks like he's going to miss tonight's game. We'll give you more details on that game in just a moment. But reviewing Game 3, Lakeena, the Warriors came out to play. Steph Curry had 30 points. Klay Thompson, 21, including 4 or 6 from downtown. They had contributions off their bench. Does his name sound familiar to you, Lakeena? Otto Porter Jr., 13 points off the bench. Jordan Poole, 27, who's been the hot story from the Warriors during these playoffs so far. So the Warriors got contributions from all important players involved. Andrew Wiggins again with another 17-point performance. On the flip side for the Grizzlies, as we mentioned, John Morant, he had 34 points, but he injured his knee late in that game. Jared Jackson, as we talked about on Friday, Lakeena, I was looking for him to have in a big game. He had 15 points, but only 3 rebounds. That's not going to get it done. I know the game got out of hand late, but the Memphis Grizzlies, outside of Morant's 34 points, they really didn't get contributions from anybody else. Desmond Bane has 16. Nice stat line, but I know part of it the game was out of reach late, but you really didn't get anything else from your bench. And Memphis has really good depth. It just didn't show up on Saturday. I know the Warriors are a better team, but Memphis really did show up in that second half.
Well, two things. They were, the Warriors shot 60% from the field. They shot about 62%, 90% from the free throw line. They're the second team in history to shoot 60% from the field, 50% from free, and 90 in playoff history. The only other team to do that was you got to go a little further back. You got to go about 21 years. The 76ers led by Iverson. He had 52 points in that game.
We talk about practice.
Yeah, well, the anniversary of that infamous practice, that might be him calling right now. But look, they had contributed. Look, Jonathan Kuminga. There's a name that people probably don't know too much about. He had 19 points. He became the 14th to score 18 points in a playoff game, joining Kobe, Tony Parker, and Carmelo. So that's pretty good company there. Now, as far as how Morant got hurt, I know people want to say, Grizzlies fans are like, well, that was a dirty play by Poole. No, I mean, look, he was already having problems with his knee. That was the knee he was having problems with earlier in the year. So I think people need to kind of and he was still, that's been bothering him all year. So I think people need to kind of just, and I'm glad that the NBA for once sort of said, look, there was nothing, malicious about it and such. Glad they took care of that. I know that the role player set up when Ja was hurt the first time he was out for those 19, 20 games.
Yeah.
The problem is these are the playoffs, and you're facing a Warriors team that's actually really good. A lot of these guys are veterans, so if he doesn't play tonight, and it looks like he's not. Taylor Jenkins said that he probably isn't. The series might be over with. I'm not saying that the Grizzlies are capable of evening the series up, but it looks like, and I'll get to Draymond might be playing a little bit inspired because, I'll get to that in a second, because in the college hoops news, some sad college hoops news there. But it's one of those things where, you're getting contributions from, Clay, Steph, Andrew Wiggins, of course, Jordan Poole is doing his thing in the playoffs. You're seeing the Warriors at their best right now, and it's going to be very hard for the Grizzlies to catch up, especially if Ja can't play tonight.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the Warriors have it clicking on all cylinders right now. We talked about Gary Payton II. He was really making an impact before he got hurt in Game 2 last Tuesday. But the Warriors keep marching on, and they have the more experienced team than the Memphis Grizzlies do. So the Warriors, hopefully you can I'm not going to say close it out tonight, but really send a message to Memphis and say, hey, we're the better team. I don't know you're missing your superstar, but we still had to play ball in this series in the hurry. So we'll see what happens tonight. Now, let's review the games from yesterday. Lakeena, as you're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sid Lakeena here with you talking NBA playoffs. Now, the two games from yesterday, the Dallas Mavericks win Game 4 in their home court, defeating the Phoenix Suns by the score of 111-101, tying that best-of-7 series at 2 games apiece. Lakeena, Chris Paul, he had an impact both on and off the court, yelling at a fan, yelling at him, but thank goodness nothing too much occurred after that. But as far as the game was concerned, he only had 5 points and 5 rebounds. That's the first time he really had struggled in this series. Jameson Crowder had 15 for the Suns and 6 rebounds. DeAndre Ayton had another double-double, 14 points, 11 rebounds. Devin Booker led all scorers for 35. He was the only reason why the Phoenix Suns were in that game in the first half. Dallas shot lights out, especially from three-point range in that first half. So that was the reason why one of the reasons why Dallas won that game yesterday. Outside of Cam Johnson's 11 points off the bench, he didn't get too much as far as contributions concerned from the Phoenix Suns bench. Dorian Finney-Smith on the flip side for Dallas, he had the game of his life, in my opinion, 24 points, including 8 of 12 from three-point range. Luka Doncic had 26, a mild game from him, using air quotes here from Luka, even though he shot 1 of 10 from three-point range, but you can get away with that. Reggie Bullock only had 7 points, but it was Bertans off the bench with 12 points. Max Keebler had 11 points off the bench. And Spencer Dinwiddie still struggling shooting the ball in this series, but he contributed with 10 points.
Well, starting with CP3, he's now 0-4. His team's now 0-14 in games that he fouled out. Now we'll get to all that in a second because I think there's some other stuff. Now, as far as look, Dorian Finney-Smith is not going to be 8 for 12 from 3-point range, every game. And just when you thought that the Suns, I think they got down to like 6 at one point, but Finney-Smith hit another 3, and then Luka did his thing and everything, and Brunson hit a big shot. Some of the calls in that game, especially the last couple of games, maybe I don't know if it was home calls or whatever, but it just seemed like there was a lot of inconsistencies in some of the foul calling.
Yeah, some of the physical play was definitely allowed yesterday.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where you're kind of like you got to roll your eyes for a second. Okay, where's the consistency in some of the refereeing? But I digress. But look, I mean, the Suns had their shots, to have to really try to play catch up. I know, CP3 was in foul trouble and some other stuff that we'll talk about that in a second. But Mikal Bridges, where were you? 6 points? No. Cam Johnson could be doing a little bit more. Some of the other campaign could be doing a little bit more. Aaron Holiday could be doing a little bit more too. Look, a lot of the role players have to step up. I know Crowder was dinged up a little bit. He came back, scored 15. He can still do a little bit more as well. So they need to kind of just get back into, to being the team that you thought. Now, we didn't think it was going to be a sweep or even a gentleman's sweep, but I had the Suns at 6. I'm on my way there. And look,
same here.
And look, they've won their 2 games at home. You thought that maybe the Mavs could do it. They've done it. Now it goes back to Phoenix. Now Phoenix needs to kind of step up. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 key stats to take away from yesterday's game: 17 turnovers by the Suns, and then of course 9 of 25 shooting for 3-point range at 36%. That's not going to get it done. The Suns will have Game 5 on the home court tomorrow night. I expect Phoenix to turn up and play a whole lot better. We talked about this last week, Lakeena. Dallas is a very good defensive team, and give head coach Jason Kidd credit for that. But it was their role players we just mentioned that stepped up over the weekend. The one of the reasons why they won games 3 and 4 in their home court. Now the home teams are 4-0 in this series. Can Dallas still Game 5 in Phoenix tomorrow? We'll find out. I'm not putting it out the question, but anything can happen. So, like you said, this series is far from over, and Game 5 is really going to be the pivotal game of this series.
And I think we'll talk more about that in a second. Now, the other game, the earlier game, the late game, I should say, in this case, the Sixers beat the Heat 116-108, tying that series. That's despite Jimmy Butler's 40 points. It wasn't enough.
Very quiet 40 points.
Yeah, it really didn't matter at some point. I know that the Heat kept it close, but the Sixers didn't, kind of slam the door. You saw a little bit of vintage playoff Harden, as some people were calling him. 31 points. He was 6
he finally showed up.
6 for 3-point range. Embiid, of course, staying up. He had 24. Tobias Harris had 13. Tyrese Maxey had 18. So a good solid team win for the Sixers to sort of tie that series up. But unfortunately for the Heat, I know Kyle Lowry's the injury, that the hamstring is bothering him. You can tell that that's going to be a problem. He only scored 6 points. Like, I know Oladipo, he did his thing, and also Tyler Hero as well off the bench, but they could have done more. But more guys need to step up. I know Bam had 21 to kick into that, but Max Truss needs to step up. PJ Tucker, 7 points. That's not going to do it for you. You're only 1 for 4 from 3-point range. That's not going to do it. So I think, I don't know if we're going to see the same. We're going to see this hard the rest of the series, but I guess it was nice to see him yesterday.
Yeah, I know he's on the picture behind me. If you're watching on our YouTube or Facebook page at Sports Zone Chicago, it was nice to see James Harden show up. Besides just showing up for tip-off, he actually was the facilitator in the tone setter for the Philadelphia 76ers last night. We mentioned with the 31 points, but he also dished out 9 assists and grabbed 7 rebounds, so he almost had a triple-double there. James Harden had an all-around game, and his teammates were looking for him. And Joel Embiid had a quiet night with 24 points and 11 rebounds. But as we said, Lakeena, everything doesn't have to fall on the big guy. Other people have to step up. James Harden is the co-leader of that team. He did his thing last night. Tobias Harris, as I told you, he's going to be the key to this series. I know he got hit below the neck late in that game. It turned out he's okay. But even though he only had 13 points, it was James Harden that set the tone for the rest of the guys. And on the flip side for Miami, outside of Butler's quiet 40 points, the Heat overall didn't shoot the ball well, in particular from 3-point range. I know they ended the game shooting it from 20%, only 7 to 35. But Philadelphia, the key was their rebounding, especially offensively with 5, and they shot the ball well from 3-point range at a 46% rate. And so Philadelphia shot the ball well from deep, and you saw a little bit in that Game 3 victory on last Friday. But they were really hot from beyond the arc yesterday, so that was the main reason why they won that game. Besides James Harden setting the tone.
Yeah, I mean 40.5% from 3-point range for the Sixers. So definitely, probably no one really expected this. I think Sixers fans were sort of trying to kind of give up on this series, but look, I think it's now a best of 3, and we'll see who steps up. And again, it's gonna be very these 2 series. I think we expect these series not to end 6, so we'll see if both the number 1 seeds, the Suns and the Heat, can kind of step up, and we'll talk about that in the second, going into tonight's games. And this is gonna be interesting. Here you got the Celtics and the Bucks. Of course, Bucks will try to get a 3-1 lead and a 2-all. We'll try to even the series. The Celtics do. Where do you see this matchup?
Like you said a few minutes ago, the Celtics better get this one tonight, because if they don't, they're definitely in trouble. Game 5 will be back on their home court. Milwaukee, their role players are starting to step up now. You mentioned Drew Holiday. He's the number 2 guy next to Giannis now, with Chris Middleton out of the lineup. Well, let's see what Grayson Allen does. Let's see what Bobby Portis can give you a little bit more. I know he got away with it on Saturday with 9 points and 7 rebounds, but let's see if he could do a little bit more. He's the energy spark plug for that team. Let's see if he can bring it tonight, because they can sense the kill, leading that series 2-1. So who's going to help out Giannis? Though, like I said, that was a quiet 42. But outside of Drew Holiday, who else is going to step up scoring wise for Boston? Jason Tatum has to be aggressive, taking the ball to the basket. We know that he can shoot the jump shot very well, but let's see him being aggressive, going to the cup and get to the free throw line. And let's see if a couple of guys off the bench can step up as well, because that's going to be the key for tonight's game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see who steps up. Well, Tatum, I'm sure Tatum will have a better game than he did on Saturday, but he's going to have to if the Celtics will try to tie this series. Memphis and Golden State, it looks like John Morant will not play tonight. It looks like Memphis, look, these are the playoffs now. Let's see. I know you want people to say that it's not just John Morant, these other guys. Well, now you get to step up. Will he do tonight against the Warriors?
Well, they're going to have to, Lakeena. They did it early in the season when John Morant missed those double-digit games. Of course, they were playing everybody on their schedule at the time. You're not playing the depleted Lakers. You're not playing the Bulls. You're not playing Charlotte. You're playing the Golden State Warriors, one of the top teams in the league. And it's definitely going to have to be a collective effort. It starts with Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, Dillon Brooks. I think he should be returning tonight from that 1-game suspension. So it's definitely going to be a total team effort. You're going to have to score inside, because the Warriors have killed them with the interior defense, especially in this series. So it's going to be a collective effort from Memphis tonight, and we'll see what happens. I'm putting the pressure on Desmond Bane to be the leader scoring-wise. We'll see what happens with that. On the flip side for Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry continues to be consistent. Klay Thompson, let's see if he can drop in more than just 21 points, although he was very effective on Saturday. And let's see if Jordan Poole continues his hot start to these playoffs in his first go-around in the playoffs. So it's going to be tough. I think the Warriors will come out on top tonight. I know they're favored by 10, but I think Memphis is going to give them a little bit of a battle. They're not going to lose by 30 points again. I guarantee you that. But I think the Warriors will pull out enough plays down the stretch to pull it out at the end.
Well, and I would also add that Draymond Green might be playing a little inspired because he lost one of his teammates tragically from Michigan State, Adrian Payne. I'll spare you guys the details. Unfortunately, sadly, died early this morning. He was a two-time second team All Big Ten. He and Draymond, the rest of the Spartans, went all the way to the Elite Eight in 2014. I remember that team well as one of my favorite teams in recent years in the Big Ten. So Dopey's, I know they were still pretty close. He's been struggling in the G League. Payne has, and if you guys don't remember the story, I'll keep it short. But he befriended a young girl named Lacey Holsworth, who had cancer throughout that season. That season they went to the Elite Eight. She unfortunately lost her battle a few years ago. And the only solace here is that now they're together again. I know they were really good friends. He was like, his younger sister. I know both their families are, having just a hug, nice little hug. But like I said before, rest in peace to both of them, and prayers to their families. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Draymond plays a little inspired tonight.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in Game 4 of that series between Memphis and Golden State. That game will take place tonight at 9:00 on TNT. The first game, Celtics at the Bucks, will be at 6:30 also on TNT. Going through the schedule for the rest of the week for the NBA playoffs. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 76ers at Miami for Game 5 of that series. That series is best of 7 series is tied at 2 games apiece. It's a best 2 out of 3 with Miami holding home court. 2 out of the next 3 games are down there in Miami. And tomorrow night at 9:00, Game 5 between Dallas and Phoenix. That game will take place in Phoenix. That's at 9 p.m. That game will also be seen on TNT. Now, Wednesday, Game 5, it will be necessary. 6 p.m. on TNT, Milwaukee at Boston for that one. Game 5 back in Boston, followed by Warriors at Grizzlies. Game 5 from Memphis FedEx Forum. That's at 8:30 p.m. That game can be also can be seen on TNT. Then on Thursday, Game 6, which team will get the opportunity to close it out? Miami at Philadelphia. That's at 6:00 on Thursday on ESPN. That's Game 6 of that series. And then Game 6 of the Phoenix-Dallas series will take place in Dallas at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday. That's on ESPN. Which team will get a chance to close out that series? So that's your playoff schedule for this week from the NBA.
We'll see, on all 4 of these series, we'll see if some of these teams will be wrapping up series or will be extending series perhaps maybe 5 or 6. We'll see what happens there. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Cindy Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee, and some news had leaked this morning about who's going to be the MVP, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, and it is back-to-back for Nikola Jokic. And, I mean, okay. I'm going to have to calm myself for a second because, look, no shade to Jokic and what he's done. I'm not going to, rag on him. I mean, okay, he'll be the 15th player to win multiple MVPs and only one of 4 players right now active to do so, along with, of course, LeBron and Steph and, of course, Giannis just a few years ago. I know some people say, look, I've seen people on Twitter talk about this, all the basketball experts, but you're telling me there's no way. We saw what happened those first 2 games against the Blazers. I know it's almost a regular season war, but you saw how the Sixers were without Embiid. And no shade to Jokic. Jokic basically had to keep that team afloat. The only reason why they even made the playoffs, Nuggets, it was because of Jokic. Does that make him valuable? Maybe. But the thing is, this is the most valuable player to his team. I know that's what some people are going to do their argument where, look, if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. The Nuggets I'm talking about. But you're telling me what Embiid did. The epitome of what most valuable player is. I don't know. Look, I guess we got to see the breakdown of the votes because they haven't released that yet. If it does come down to just a few first place votes, okay, I'll give that to Jokic. But if some are not voting for Embiid, just because, I don't know. But what do you think, Sid?
I will counter your argument with this. Jokic, he is the definition of an MVP, most valuable player, correct? Because he did it without Jamal Murray, and he did it without Michael Porter Jr. Like you said, he kept that team afloat. And that's why even though Denver ended up with the 6th seed at the end of the regular season, Jokic did what he had to do. He reached down and did a little bit more to keep Denver afloat. So for that, he does match of MVP, most valuable player. Now, my vote, I told you it would have been for Devin Booker, but half y'all don't watch basketball outside the East Coast, so you get exposed right there. But I think it was between Jokic and Embiid. I would have given it to Embiid personally because Philadelphia, yes, they had their struggles to start the year. You know, the Ben Simmons nonsense. James Harden was traded to them at the trade deadline. Joel Embiid, yes, he missed a few games here and there, unlike a year ago at this time. Joel Embiid, for the first time in a while, has been healthy for the most part, unlike LeBron James playing the majority of the 82-game season. And Joel Embiid does fit that definition of MVP. He impacts winning on that squad more than Jokic does when that Nuggets team is healthy. But we talked about this when we had Big Dave Watson and Matt Peck on from CHGO Chicago podcast. They cover the Bulls for that great outlet. And I guess the voters didn't mind giving the MVP to a team that finished in sixth place, even though they had a bunch of injuries. No, it's not Jokic's fault, but he did what he had to do to keep that team up afloat. Philadelphia has been around the top three. They were around the top three in the standings all season long. And Joel Embiid played without Ben Simmons, and Harden came in late, barely for the second half of that run. And so Joel Embiid has been more the consistent one for me, and I would have given my vote to Embiid.
Like, yeah, and you're right. I mean, look, if that's what these voters' definition of MVP is, okay, Jokic, okay, yeah, he was the reason why they even got to the playoffs and Nuggets. But you're also talking about a player who's been consistent. You know, I'm talking about Embiid. Yeah, it's like you said. Yes, they had the whole thing with Ben Simmons and that just, tomfoolery and everything else. Okay, I get it. But like I said, I gotta see the breakdown of the votes because I'm thinking it came down to just maybe just a couple of votes, maybe a handful of votes. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the coming days. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead as you're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live and in living color or Sports Zone Chicago. We have the NFL Monday Night Football opening week schedule to talk about. Yours surely is happy and not at the same time. We'll explain. Of course, we still have our playoff series review to discuss with the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs. Things are getting interesting in all 8 series. And we had to pay tribute to a television show that revolutionized one cable network in the late 80s into the 90s. And we have some sports media news to pass along to you guys. All that and more. Hour number 2 is next. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut-rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
We have less than 16 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. You have a question or comment for us, make sure you go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Typing in questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of Second City Sports by discussing the NHL playoffs, as we call it, the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Now, we'll quickly run down the scores from Saturday's games. Most of these teams that played on Saturday, they'll play tonight. We'll get to that in just a second. But here are some of the scores from Saturday's action. In Game 3 of the Panthers Capitals series, the Washington Capitals, or the Crapitals, most old schoolers will call them. They defeated the Florida Panthers 6-1 to take a 2-1 series lead. In that first round series, the Colorado Avalanche, moving over to the Western Conference, they take care of the Nashville Predators in Game 3 of that series 7-3. We told you Nashville stinks. They barely made the playoffs for a reason. Now you know why, because you have no goaltending and no scoring.
Pretty much what I expected this series was going to go.
Exactly.
So I'm not. We might see our very first sweep tonight, but again, we'll see if Colorado can close it out.
And continuing our scores from Saturday, the Rangers Pittsburgh series has been very entertaining thus far. Game 3, the Penguins come out on top 7-4. The power play for Pittsburgh was the difference, and everyone was scoring 2 goals. And the Rangers, they really could get anything going. And we'll preview the games coming up tonight. But the New York Rangers currently trail their series 2-1. And the Dallas Stars, yes, the Dallas Stars, the inconsistency team, they held on for a 4-2 win over Calgary in Game 3 late Saturday night. So they take a 2-1 series lead in the best of 7 in that first round series in the Western Conference. Now, going to the games from yesterday, Lakeena had a chance to watch a couple of them. The first game that was played on ESPN late Sunday morning for those of us here in the Central Time Zone. The Boston Bruins got back in this series, tying the best of 7 series with the Carolina Hurricanes, defeating Carolina at home by the score of 5-2. The power play has been the difference for the Boston Bruins in this series. I know the Carolina head coach was complaining about not getting enough calls. Hey, that's what happens in Stanley Cup playoffs come this time of year. You're allowed a little bit more physical play. Boston has taken advantage on their power play during this series. Has been up and down this year, but during the last 2 games, it's been stellar.
Yeah, it has. And Brad Marchand, who got a little bit chippy between him and a couple of the Carolina players earlier in that game. But look, he scored 2 goals, and that breaks a tie with Phil Esposito for the third most in Bruins history and the franchise history. He joins Bergeron, his teammate, in the top 3 now. So big accomplishment for him as well. And also too, it'll be interesting to see about this series, because I always felt that this was one of those series where it's going to be like who's going to step up, and looks like so far I think it's been both. So tomorrow's Game 5 is pivotal, but again, we'll get to that in a second. And I actually saw that game for a few minutes, so it was actually a really a great it's just been a great series so far, as we thought it would be, Sid. So
yes,
it's definitely living up to the hype. Canes and Bruins.
Now, who's going to steal home ice? Because 2 of the next 3 games are in Carolina. As the old saying goes, a series doesn't start until the road team steals one. So we'll see what happens in that series. As Lakeena mentioned, Game 5 will take place from Carolina tomorrow night. Continuing our review from yesterday, the St. Louis Blues get back into the series against the Minnesota Wild, defeating Minnesota on their home ice by the score of 5-2, tying that best of 7 series, the first round series, at 2 games apiece. I told you, Lakeena, Minnesota, this is not their chance to steal a first round series. I don't know what it is. I don't know when that's going to be. This is the best young core they have in a long time. I know St. Louis has had a bounce back year, and Vladimir Tarasenko's had a bounce back year. But Andre Fleury, Game 5, this is time for him to steal a game at home.
Yeah,
you would think it would happen. You would think what happened. They have the score to back them up.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened there. It's just that their goaltending just wasn't there, and they tied it. They just couldn't really get it going. I mean, Kaprizov had that early goal to tie it, but their offense. Huron had that sort of like that go ahead goal. I know Kiro had a goal in the second period that kind of put the game away. So game 5 is pivotal again tomorrow. So again, it's definitely gonna depend on who steps up. We'll see if the Wild can step up. Now going into another game another series is now 2-2. Again, like I said before, folks, this was a theme here. The Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champs, two-time defending Stanley Cup champs, got the best of Toronto 7-3. I caught some of this game, and it was just a wild game for a little bit. I know that Tampa Bay just hammered Toronto early and didn't really let them up. I know that 7-3. I know that it wasn't close for a little bit. No, the Leafs actually scored 3 goals, all 3 in the third period, but it was already out of reach.
Yeah, defensive breakdowns, dumb penalties, and throughout their recent history, Toronto has had problems with their goaltending. Coming to this series, I said that the Toronto needed to steal a game or two, goaltending wise. Says that still hasn't happened yet. Will it happen? We'll see. But I expected this to be a back and forth series. That's why this series is tied up at 2 games apiece. I had Toronto in 7, and I still confident in that. But they're gonna have to get it taken care of defensively, because if you going into a track meet with Tampa Bay, even though they have a lack of depth, you're going to be toast. So Toronto, I know game 5 will be back at home on their home turf tomorrow, but they got to take care of those defensive schemes, because you can't outrun Tampa Bay. You just can't.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be speed. It's going to be all that, and also defense. So I'm going to wonder and see who's going to step up for both teams. It's going to be pivotal here. Game 5. That's another game 5. That's tomorrow, and also to another game 5. It's going to be pivotal because the Kings in the late game shut out the Oilers for nothing. Grundstrom had 2 goals, kind of put the game away, and it was just kind of dominant from start to finish. Jonathan Quick showed a little bit of the old Jonathan Quick.
Yeah, vintage. Yeah, back to 2012, 2013.
Right, 31 saves, and
yes.
So I thought the Oilers would have this series, but the Kings said not so fast.
Yeah, you don't want to give a young team like the LA Kings confidence. We talked about it last week, Lakeena. They still have a couple of pieces left on their young core, from a decade ago, but they still have a bunch of young players, a bunch of young defensemen. They're inconsistent, but you expect that from a first year, second year player in the NHL. But right now, the Kings are hanging right in there with the Oilers. It's been more about the Oilers, to tell the truth, Lakeena, being inconsistent offensively. Connor McDavid, you have to show up. Leon Drysdale, you have to show up as well. And you're going to need some solid goaltending from Smith as well. So this is more about Edmonton not being consistent more than the LA Kings. Give the LA Kings credit. I know they stole the first game in Edmonton, so that's going to give them confidence going into game 5. But Edmonton, you're the better team up down the road. So you got to put your foot on the Kings' neck early.
Yeah.
In the next game.
Yeah, and look, we'll get to the game 5. Another pivotal game 5 for tomorrow night. But going into tonight's matchups, you got we'll get this game out the way, since I know it's the late game on ESPN, but Colorado and Nashville. Do you think Colorado, this is your shot to sweep? They'll be the first team to sweep in these NHL playoffs. Do they do it tonight?
Yes. Next.
I do too. I do too. I think Colorado said, let's just get this over with.
Yeah.
A game 4 here. Washington is up 2-1, like we talked about from Saturday. The Panthers. Okay, Florida. Don't make me look like an idiot here. So you better step up against the Capitals.
Yeah, you're a better team than the Capitals up and down the roster. You have a better offense than Washington. Washington's still holding on to that core from 2018. But to me, it's going to come down to who's going to play the more disciplined hockey. And we all know Washington can be undisciplined at times, i.e. Tom Wilson, but I digress from that. But the Panthers have an overall better offensive game than Washington does. This is Florida's opportunity opportunity to steal one in Washington. They couldn't do that on Saturday. The better opportunity, obviously, is tonight. So I'm expecting Florida to tie this series up tonight at 2.
It's going to be interesting though because we've been saying, I think in this series, Florida, look, people there, you were one of the top teams in the East all year long. I think you got guys but remember too, you got Alex Ovechkin still over there, and he's still pretty productive at his age. So the fact that he's still doing it and being productive, that's kind of one of the reasons why the Capitals are where they are right now. And I think, look, guys need to step up, for the Panthers. Boudreaux needs to step up. Barkov needs to step up, and the goaltending has to step up too. I think that's been sort of like the thing here. I know there have been some, cheap goals that have been given up, but at the same time, though, you got to look, if you want to prove that you're right there in the contention for the playoffs and want to go far, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you need to step up in the goaltending as well. So let's hope that they can do that.
Let's see what happens in that game 4 tonight. That's at 6:00 p.m. Central Standard Time on TBS. At 6:00 on ESPN, game 4 of the Pittsburgh New York Rangers series taking place in Pittsburgh. As I mentioned, Pittsburgh won game 3 on Saturday by the score of 7-3. 2 power play goals by the Penguins were the difference in that one tonight. Lakeena, here's the thing. Chris Kreider, the Breadman, a.k.a. Artemi Panarin, they both got to step up. The Rangers got to step up in scoring and keep your what's out of the penalty box. If they could do those two things, the Rangers will win. I expect the Rangers to tie this series up tonight.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, the Rangers are just too good. I know. Look, they still got Crosby. I know they got Letang. I know those guys have been around for a while, but look, I think the Rangers are a younger team. I know Panarin. I wish he was still with the Blackhawks, but that's a whole nother.
Thank you, Stan
thing.
Bowman, but I digress.
Again, you digress. Kreider too as well. So. Yeah, I think both guys will step up tonight. I think their goaltending. I know their goal has been banged up too, so it'll be interesting to see if we can get that. And if you're the Rangers, your strategy is try to jump on the Penguins early and often. So
they've been having the goaltending issues too. I'm talking about Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of those goal issues that Pittsburgh has had. To be more aggressive, and in defense, your defensemen's experts need to step up as well. So we'll see what happens in that game. I'm gonna keep an eye on that one. Also, to the last game on TBS of that doubleheader, you got Dallas and Calgary. Dallas is showing that, hey, you know what? We're actually still pretty good. And also to our buddy Chris Vosters, who's now the Blackhawks, new play-by-play guy. He said, "Why hasn't the Calgary been scoring?" It's me. I don't know. They've had their shot. It's not that they haven't had their chances. They just haven't been going in. So hopefully the Flames will kick it up a notch, because a lot of people have been picking them to win the Stanley Cup, or at least come out of the West. At least. Yeah.
Johnny Grudeau, aka Johnny Hockey. Where are you, buddy? Yeah. So Lakeena does her search, but we all know that Calgary has the speed and they have the skill to compete against anybody in that Western Conference. And Dallas has been chipping away in this series. If your Calgary just continue to be aggressive, I think things will turn their way. They better do it tonight, or else they're in trouble. Dallas, looking at them from the outside looking in, they don't have the best team up and down their roster, but they've been doing the little things, so that's why they're up 2-1 in this series. The pressure's all on Calgary tonight, even though it's on the road.
Yeah, I think Calgary definitely. If you're Calgary, this is a must win, because if you go down 3-1 to Dallas, I know Dallas is a young squad. They've got a couple of guys that are pretty good at this. So if you're Calgary, you better try and score. And that's about it. Now going into tomorrow's action, again, these are all pivotal game 5s. We'll start, the first game up on ESPN. Both games are going to be on either on ESPN or ESPN2. We'll start the first game on ESPN. You got Boston and Carolina. I know that Carolina, they're kind of been sort of like they were the favorite in this series. I think, look, they need to, their defense needs to step up and stay out of just try not to let it be too chippy.
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth, Lakeena. Message to Carolina: stay out the box.
Stay out of the penalty box. Stay out of the penalty box. It's that simple. The second game, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be turning back and forth from this one too. So Tampa and Toronto in a pivotal game 5. Okay, it's going to be interesting to see what wins out here. Will it be the experience of Tampa? They got 2 of these back to back, or will it be sort of the upstart with Austin Matthews? He's a step up. We didn't see him in game 4, and I know this is going to be very interesting. Like I said, this was a toss-up series from jump. And it looks like we'll see what kind of transpires tomorrow night.
This would be a goaltending game for Toronto. You
You would
would
think.
think being home, game 5, the crowd is ready to go and ramped up. So this could be a goaltending game for Toronto, but like I said, I picked Toronto with 7 to win. I expect them to win it tomorrow night. So no excuses, especially after that ugly performance yesterday.
Yeah, ooh, that was just brutal. Just took the lead, they never looked back. So we'll see what they do tomorrow. Who wins that game 5? Another pivotal game 5, St. Louis and Minnesota. All right, Wild, don't mess around here. I
Yeah.
had you guys winning this series, so you need to come on. You need to step up here, Krepazov. I mean, but he needs help, and your goalie needs help too.
Yep, Marc-Andre Fleury. Hopefully, this will be the game for him to take over. And like you said, Lakeena, let's see if they can take advantage of any of the St. Louis mistakes. Of course, last game it was flipped with St. Louis taking advantage of Minnesota. So as we said, this was going to be a back and forth series. I had Minnesota upsetting St. Louis. Let's see if Marc-Andre Fleury what does he have left in the tank, and this will be the perfect time for him to do it tomorrow night in Game 5 in front of their home fans.
Should be interesting.
In the XL Center.
Yeah, it should be a fun when they're at the XL Center. I know this place is going to be rocking. That's probably one of the best places in the league. So
let's play hockey.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. That's just silly how that PA announcer does that. Now the last game of the pivotal game 5, you got the Kings and the Oilers. Okay, Connor McDavid, you said yourself you wanted to show what you're made of in the playoffs. You haven't done so far. You need to kind of step up. I know Drasati needs to also step. I know he's been, he scored a couple, but they need to step up too. And look, the Kings. Look, I know they're young, but look, you still got Kopitar, you still got Kempe, you still got Jonathan Quick. So it's going to be very interesting to see what sort of wins out in the end. Will it be the goal scoring of the Oilers, or will it be sort of a little bit of that experience that we saw from some of the Stanley Cup winning or Stanley Cup advancing teams from the Kings from years back?
You would think that Edmonton will come out fired and be ready to go and be the aggressor because Game 5 is on their home ice. You would think. But the Kings are playing with house money. You saw what they did in Game 1. They stole Game 1 in Edmonton last week. And so you cannot count out the Kings. As I said earlier with the Dallas, you can't give these young teams confidence because they haven't been there in the playoffs before, and the more you give them confidence, the more they believe they can win. So, for the LA Kings, you're playing with house money. For Edmonton, the pressure's on you, so you have to dominate from the first whistle to the last whistle.
Let me just see who defensively who steps up, because I think this is going to be sort of the key here, and also to scoring. I think if you're the Oilers, you better try and score early, because if not, if you let the Kings hang around, you have so far this playoffs. Now they're feeling more confident they can beat you. So a lot of people thought this was going to be, at the very least, a 4-win a sweep, or maybe even a 5-win gentleman sweep. So now you're tied at 2, and this is a pivotal Game 5. You don't want to be going back to Los Angeles down 3-2 if you're the Oilers. So you don't. Step up. You guys better step up. Just saying. And also the goal differential has been crazy. The scoring has been just insane. I think I saw some place where I guess the average goals per game was like just under 7, like 6.5 or something like that. That's like the highest scoring since 1993. And also the goal differential too is the highest is like a little over 3, and I think that would be like among the highest since 87 and 2018 at every round from the first round on. So lots of scoring going on, and it was nice to see that the ratings are actually been pretty good so far in the NHL playoffs for both ESPN and Turner.
Yes, we have a story as far as the regular season ratings. We'll talk about that in our next break. Running down the schedule for the Stanley Cup playoff schedule for the rest of the week. This is going to Wednesday. Stars and Flames will Game 5 will take place. Time to be announced. This is continuing on a Wednesday schedule, 6 o'clock on ESPN on Wednesday. Penguins at Rangers, Game 5, and that's East Series, first round series at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN2. Capitals, Panthers, first round of the East, Game 5 of that series, and this is for Wednesday. And then, if necessary, Colorado and Nashville, Game 5. If you're smart like us, I don't think Game 5 would be necessary.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's going to be how the schedule is. If Colorado does end up winning tonight, being the Preds and sweeping them, I think that game, that Dallas game, well, that Calgary, I should say, will probably be like about 8:30 or something like that.
Yeah. Now going to Thursday's schedule, 6 o'clock on TNT, Game 6 of the Boston Carolina series from Boston. At 6:30 on TBS, Tampa and Toronto, Game 6 of that series. At 8:30 on TNT, Game 6 of the St. Louis, Minnesota series. And Game 6 of the Orleans Kings series will take place at 9 p.m. from LA on Thursday. That game can also be seen on TBS. So that's your schedule for the Stanley Cup Playoffs this upcoming week.
Ooh, should be so much fun. Now we got a few more minutes left. I wanted to wait till after we do the break because I know you had a lot to say about that Monday Night Football scheduling, but okay, let's talk about Barry Trotz. More NHL news. Barry Trotz was fired by the Islanders. That's definitely a head scratcher.
Yeah, I know the Islanders failed to qualify for the playoffs this year. I know they've been knocking on the door the last couple years. I know Barry Trotz won the Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals back in 2018. He had to head the bench in Nashville for those previous seasons. He's a very good head coach. I know there's been some small rumblings that the Blackhawks should take a look at him.
I've heard people say that.
I don't know that Jim Kyle Davidson will go in that direction.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He definitely be a name, but for the system that he has, do those players on that roster right now fit that? Call me crazy. I don't think so.
No, and no, and I mean, especially, I'm sure if you're Barry Trotz, I mean, the Blackhawks, especially, we'll see what direction that they decide to go. But if they do go like a full, tear down, well, maybe almost full tear down and rebuild. If you're Barry Trotz, do you want to deal with that?
No, you don't. You assume that he wants to win.
Right. So I don't, because you'd just be collecting the check in that case. So
exactly.
I don't know, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I'm sure he's going to be one of those guys in demand. Now I'm wondering though, speaking of the Blackhawks, as we're already talking about them, what direction do they decide to go? What names are being floated around? I know Derek King has been right there. They know him. The players know him, and I know he was hot early, and then things kind of tip her off as the season went on, but he's going to get full consideration for the job. Now, have you heard about other names that being thrown around as a potential?
Outside of Barry Trotz, not too many big time names. So, well, we'll see what happens. I think is it really all going to depend what direction, as you said, that the Blackhawks are going in. I think they're going to go into the almost rebuild. I know Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, I believe Alex DeBrincat, all of them are free agents after next season, I believe. And so I think what's going to happen is that you're going to do everything to keep Alex DeBrincat. He's the new talent coming up. Patrick Kane has expressed that he wants to stay in Chicago for the rest of his career. Jonathan Taves, great career, love you, but it looks like he wants to go back home in Canada to play. If he wants to do that, you should let him do that, because it looks like he doesn't want to stick around here, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, a couple of names that I've seen from some of the various people I follow and read, bloggers. Claude Julien. I mean, there's a name you haven't heard in a while. Of course, Bruins head coach. Won a Stanley Cup with them in 2011. Been with the Canadiens the last few years, I should say, up until last season. Is he a name that you probably would go after if you're Kyle Davidson?
I would assume that you would go after a young guy that is the opposite of Jeremy Carlton. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because some people said
all respect to Claude Julien, but could he stay awake with the we assume it's gonna be a young core?
Yeah, exactly. Well, most of the names are like guys like over 50. I know Rick Talk, his name's been floated around.
No. Mr. Gambling Man, no.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just spreading I'm just a messenger.
If that's the case, bring Chris Chelios from the booth, okay?
Oh, jeez. Oh, Lord. Oh, Jesus. But yeah, so they may get some name, some young name, maybe like 30, 40, like a 40-something year old name that's being floated around. Well, look, I mean, Derek Kane's 55. It's not like he's a young guy, so it's
He
not
looks
like
younger than 55.
he
Huh?
looks. Well, so yeah, he looks,
Maybe he went. Maybe
his
age
most
55
impressive.
after the last couple of months.
Yeah, I'll say he probably may not. He may not have, like I said, they ages yet. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what direction the Hawks go, especially with their coaching, because I feel like you said, Sid, and I think everyone else has said the same thing. I mean, it's going to depend on what direction are they going. Are they going by a full teardown, or are they going to try to maybe do it halfway, perhaps maybe try to contend maybe for the next couple of years? I don't know, and that's going to be the thing. If you're Kyle Davis, that's the one thing you got to figure out.
Yeah, you still need a couple of solid defensemen. Maybe they'll come through this draft this year. Also, you need a goaltender, and I don't think that starting goaltender is on his roster right now. I think it's pretty much safe to say.
No,
And,
it's not.
starting goaltending is like starting pitching in Major League Baseball. Everybody wants it, but very few people can find it.
And they don't have it right now. So
Mhm.
be interested to see what direction they go. But yeah, we'll keep you guys updated and such. And with that said, we're up against the break. We're going to take our last break for today on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Coming up, Sid will have his air his grievances about the doubleheader and Monday night football schedule. That was just released. Well, yeah. Well, that was just released earlier this morning. If you guys didn't see it on GMA, they made this big we'll explain later on. We'll explain after the break. Also, too, underdog wins the Kentucky Derby, and another reason why I don't gamble on horse racing. We'll just leave it there. Also, too, some other sports media news. Also, too, Sid wants to pay tribute to a groundbreaking show from the 90s. Well, late 80s going to the 90s. But all that and more coming up next. Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll stay right there.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight, 126-109, the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. We have this is our last break of the show for today. Less than half hour left in this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have a question or comment for us, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comments section. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
Lakeena, Monday Night Football, Good Morning America this morning made a special announcement regarding their Monday Night Football schedule. you take it away from there.
If you didn't see GMA this morning, I know they repeated it somewhere, I think everywhere, but if you didn't get a chance to see it, the big announcement it was sort of interesting the way they did it, because it had Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. I think Kelly Harton was there, who does a great job on GMA. Of course, she did work at ESPN for a few years. Also, Dak Prescott, from of course the Cowboys quarterback, was there as well. They were in Dallas. They're doing this cross country trip. I think Kaylee is, and her first stop was Dallas, and they made the big announcement there that the Week 2 doubleheader for Monday Night Football will be first off on ESPN. This is September 19th. It'll be Tennessee and Buffalo, a rematch from last year. That'll be at 6:15 Central Time on ESPN. And the capper of the doubleheader, kind of going overlapping, and on ABC, of course. Now starting this season, Monday Night Football will be now on ABC as well as ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that in a second, because I always felt that was just stupid how they took it off, but that's another. I'll get to that in a second. Minnesota and Philadelphia, that'll be on ABC at 7:30, I should say, Central Time, 8:30 Eastern Time. And it'll be interesting to see, Sid, how are they going to do this? Are they going to put Buck and Aikman on the first matchup I talked about? That's a better matchup, Buffalo and Tennessee, even though it's only on ESPN, or will they put them on the Minnesota-Philly game, which, you got two historic franchises, will be their first time playing each other in the regular season, blah, blah, blah. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this.
First mistake was putting the Minnesota-Philadelphia game on ABC. That should have been on ESPN.
Minnesota,
they should have switched. Yeah, they should have switched it. Number two, as you said, if you want to make a big bang, you will put Buck and Aikman on ABC. As you said, I think starting this year, the games will be simulcast on ABC as well, full time this year. So that would make some sense. But we know that these big corporations, they don't always operate on common sense or logic. So that's why bad things happen to people who do not operate in that manner. Now, this will be fun for yours truly, Lakeena, in a sense, because I'll be watching one game on the big screen and the other one via this computer screen. So there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be doing that on the first week. Remember, I told you around this time last year, Lakeena, when they didn't do the double header of Monday Night Football last year. They just went with the one game. I hope it blows up in the face. It turns out it did. But the problem is now you put your best Monday Night Football matchup in week 1 on cable instead of on broadcast TV. Exactly. What the hell is Minnesota doing on Monday Night Football to open up the week?
I know, and it's you got a new coach, of course. Kirk Cousins there. Look, I know, Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. I get it. Maybe, of course, you got Jalen Hurts and now AJ Brown's over there now. So maybe that's why. Yeah,
I know Philadelphia does well on Monday Night Football in terms of the ratings. I get it. You're in Philadelphia. That makes sense. I get that part.
I think,
but Minnesota, no.
Why. Well, like Kirk Cousins, but I mentioned, like I said, Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. Those are two very dynamic players. They got a new coach. They're kind of the same boat as the Bears are. I'm talking about Minnesota. And of course, you've got Buffalo. They've made some moves. Von Miller is now with Buffalo. You got Josh Allen. You got Stephon Diggs. You got Tennessee. We'll see. Hopefully, Derrick Henry is healthy for that game. Ryan Tannehill and such. I guess.
Would he be the starting quarterback on opening day? That's the question.
Well, yeah. I mean, Malik Willis. I know they got into this whole thing about what Tannehill said, that it's not his job to mentor Willis and any other young QBs. I guess people are seeing if something happens or Tannehill stinks and maybe they put bring Willis in. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just spitballing what was sort of like the mindset of doing this. But yeah, like I said before, there'll be so many questions. And if they do put Buck and Aikman in which game they do put them in, and who's looking at the second game, will it be Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit like it's been the last few years that they've done this? Will they maybe put Steve Levy and Louis Riddick on there too? Remember, Brian Reese.
That's probably more realistic. Steve Levy and Riddick.
Yeah, and because Brian Reese is with San Francisco now as their QB coach, so at least just see what they do.
Yes, we'll see what happens. Of course, the rest of the NFL schedule will be released on Thursday, and we'll talk about it on Friday right here on Second City Sports. And of course, as I'll say this here as we wrap up the NFL Monday Night Football release schedule, the Bears don't deserve to be on Monday Night Football. I'll be shocked if they get one game. I'll be shocked if they get a Sunday night game. If they're on prime time, they'll be on it once.
Well, and also, yeah, you got Justin Fields and everything else. And, well, at least we don't have to hear Troy Aikman swear too much if the Bears don't get on Monday night. So, or, hey. Okay, he was on the verge more than a few times the last couple of years, but I digress. We just see some of the scheduling, of course, what the Monday night schedule is. Now that you have a solid tandem like Buck and Aikman, I'm sure we'll get the better games now. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. You're listening to Second City Sports on the live in the Living Color on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Let's go back to hockey, Lakeena, and this comes to our good friends from Awful Announcing. NHL local ratings dropped by 23% this season, with only 4 teams showing increases. While the NHL's TV partners were quite happy, that's ESPN and Turner Sports, with viewership during this past season 2021-22, it's a different story at the local level. Per the Sports Business Journal, the league's average ratings on regional sports networks this season dropped by 23%. The usual caveats apply. Data for the Hurricanes and the Predators were not available, and the league's 7 Canadian teams were not included. Additionally, it's worth noting that this was the NHL's first full season since the 2018-19 campaign, with the last 2 seasons having fewer than 82 games due to the pandemic. Only 4 teams saw their local ratings increase this season: the Los Angeles Kings, Minnesota Wild, the Florida Panthers, and the Detroit Red Wings. Can't make this up, folks.
Well, it's interesting you that said, because I saw that article that came out, and look, when the Blackhawks aren't doing well and all the stuff that that transpired prior to that, and some of the other top names, I'm not surprised, especially with some of the big names. I know New York, both the New York teams did pretty well too, ratings wise, I should say. And like I said, I think the Hawks not being up there or not being very good this year, I think that played a little bit of a part too. I feel like the ratings being down, because I think those were, for years, the Hawks were like near or at the top of the ratings in the national in the NHL locally. So I think that didn't help. They really do not. The NHL really doesn't promote their stars well. We always get on the MLB for not promoting their stars.
Yep, the NHL has the same problem.
The same problem, and they actually do it worse. I mean, you got Connor McDavid, you got Kiprusoff, you got all these names, you got Austin Matthews. People should know, even locally and nationally, what he's been doing scoring wise. We haven't seen that. So, and also too, you got guys that have been around. You got Marc-Andre Fleury, you got Stamkos. You got all these names. Of course, Sidney Crosby is still a factor at his age. So is Ovechkin as well. So it's sort of like a definite problem. Now, of course, yes, you could play the pandemic because 2 years. You could play for the crowds. We haven't played a full season in NHL in a few years. I get it. That played a part as well. But there's so many like variations here, and I feel like the NHL could be doing better. And I think the good news is, though, at ESPN, we talked about last week, so ESPN and Turner saw raise increases in their sports in the NHL. So, but locally, it's got a lot to do. And plus, all the regional networks and such, maybe that's why all the battles there. So maybe that's probably why. I don't know.
Yeah, and we said it before, ESPN, along with Turner, TBS, and TNT, all 3 of those channels are on your main basic package. If you have cable, of course, streaming is part of this as well. But if you have basic cable, like yours truly does, I know you do as well, you get ESPN, TBS, and TNT. So it's easy to find those games. Now, when they were at NBC, they were on not just regular NBC, but NBCSN, which no longer exists. They were on CNBC, USA. I know that USA is part of the basic TV package, but they were almost all over the place. You want to go back to those versus days, Lakeena?
Oh Lord! Oh God! Oh Lord! I mean, yeah, exactly. So, just literally trying to find trying to find those networks.
That was terrible.
That was awful because we had a different cable system than a cable provider then. So that was a whole nother adventure. But I think the NHL, look, they did a good job by putting it on ESPN and Turner, because Turner is also on a lot of the basic networks on your local cable or satellite provider if you have DirecTV and Dish and such. The problem is that locally they still got a lot to do. So I don't know what can they do, but still a lot to think about if you're in the NHL.
Yeah, just finish up the article here. In terms of the overall ratings, Pittsburgh led the pack with 5.3 rating on Root Sports Pittsburgh, followed by St. Louis on Bally Sports Midwest with a 4.28. Buffalo 3.78 on MSG. That franchise hasn't made the playoffs in 12 years. Good grief. That fan base deserves much better than the trash they're watching right now.
Ooh,
the Minnesota Wild 3.04 on Bally Sports North. In Vegas, who barely missed the playoffs thanks to the Blackhawks beating them at their last home game of the season, also had a 3.04 rating on AT&T Sports Rocky Mountain. Of course, Vegas is a new franchise. It's the first time in their history that they had missed the playoffs. So it's a culture shock to those fans out there in Vegas. But we talked to our girl, Rachel Kopchak. I know she did a report out there from Vegas a few years ago. And that place is alive for hockey. I know professional sports. It's the new thing in Las Vegas. They say has been growing over the last many years as a big metropolitan city. They have the Raiders there now for the NFL. It won't be too long before they have an NBA team. Will Major League Baseball invest in a team when they start realignment in a few years? We'll see.
Well, I think that also to Seattle. I heard Seattle's ratings were actually really good as well. So
for Root Sports,
Even though the team didn't do very well this year, of course, that's understandable because they're their expansion team. But Seattle, there's a lot of passion. Look, Seattle's probably got one of the most passionate fan bases in the nation. Of course, you got the Mariners, you got the Seahawks. Well, we won't even go whole thing with the Super Sox. They should still be there. I mean, no shade, but.
Yeah,
that
check out the documentary on YouTube, the full version.
Yeah, I saw that, and
Sonic's Gate.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what they do the next few years, and so I think there were so many factors as to why the Rays were locally where they were. So I just think also lack of promotion, and then I feel like I said, all this stuff going on with some of the regional sports networks and some of the feuds there. I think there was a lot of parameters. So. It's unfortunate that the Rays were not as good as they were locally as they were nationally, but it is what it is.
All right. Continuing with our sports media news segment, Dick Vitale, who suffered through cancer this year, is now in remission as of now. He will receive this year's Jimmy V Award for perseverance during the SB broadcast on July the 20th.
Definitely deserving, and he is cancer-free now, which is awesome to hear. And look, like Mark Haydam, I think he's definitely the epitome of what ESPN is, what college hoops is. I think to me, college hoops is better when he's around. Yeah, I know he could be. Yeah, I know his age is starting to show a little bit, and I know he could be a little out there at times. But again, he's like one of those name guys that you feel at home when you hear him on ESPN. So that's sort of the thing that's good to hear and very deserving of winning that Courage Award. We'll see who will be the nominations for the ESPYs. Coming up in a couple. I think next month they're going to announce the nominations. But I'll be very interested to see how he looks. I mean, he looks fantastic, and he's a beloved figure there. So good for Dickie V.
Yeah, I remember the first one with the Jimmy Valvano, the late Jimmy Valvano. His speech, it went on for a half hour, but it was a very emotional and inspirational speech. You can look for it on YouTube. You haven't seen it yet, especially for our young viewers and listeners out there. Of course, Stuart Scott from 2014. That was it turned out to be the last few months of his life, unfortunately, but that was a great speech. Of course, Craig Sager, a couple years later, he passed away, but he was given that award as well. So great speeches by all three of those gentlemen. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on YouTube. So Dickie V, he won't be short of passion. I promise you that.
He'll probably go on for about a half hour too.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
And then as he should. So hopefully they've got the extended hours for that particular telecast. Now going on with more sports media news, could we be seeing Richard Sherman on Amazon Prime?
I saw the headline from that. I know he has some off the field issues a year or so ago. Hopefully that's taken care of. If it is, let that man work. He won't be playing, obviously, but he's a very intelligent young man. I want to see what kind of role he's going to do. I assume it's going to be a studio / analyst role? Or will he do a role like kind of what Kevin Garnett did at TNT a few years ago, which I still think he should be doing, but I know he's not doing that now. But
Yeah. Well, people forget that Richard Sherman went to Stanford. He was all
yeah,
Pac-10 at Stanford. So I think people need to forget that he's actually a pretty smart guy and a pretty engaging guy. This is according to our good buddy, well, not our good buddy, but Ian Rappaport from
mhm.
NFL Network. He's in deep talks with Amazon for a key role in their programming. And he'll stay in shape, of course. Of course, that's the caveat here for a possible NFL opportunity. But all eyes are on him for his future. And also, too, Andrew Marchand added that him and Andrew Whitworth, who, of course, Man of the Year, Super Bowl champion, and also Jason Garrett could be names to watch as well. And still a lot of moving parts here when it comes to sports media news.
Yep. Continuing with our sports media news, Mark Jackson of ESPN was interviewed by the Sacramento Kings over the weekend, and it looks like he may be interviewed by the Los Angeles Lakers. So, of course, current Golden State Warriors assistant head coach Mike Brown got the job at Sacramento. Good luck to him cleaning up that mess. And congratulations to Joe Dumars. He was behind the scenes with the Sacramento Kings the last couple of years. He'll be the VP of the NBA now. So he's going to the big house in New York City, working under Adam Silver. Congratulations to Basketball Hall of Famer Joe Dumars.
Well, he's been
now, Mark Jackson does this.
Well, he's been working the front office for the last, I'm trying to think, 20 years, 15, 20 years, Joe Dumars. So, so he's
combined with his days in Detroit and Sacramento. Yeah.
Right. So he's definitely paid his dues and has earned his opportunity. And good for him for having a nice, great front office gig, after his playing days. That's good to see. So congrats to him.
Yeah, Mark Jackson, does this clear the way for him to get that LA Lakers job? He's a LeBron in sports. Your thoughts?
Oh my God. I want this to happen. So I was telling our buddy Matt Peck about this. I want this to happen. We both want this to happen so bad. Because I can see, especially if things go haywire over there in LA. Oh boy. I can't contain myself. I can't contain this. Just a pure thought of that. Just the thought of that happening. It would just be the gift that keeps on giving, especially if they don't do well earlier this season.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. You say he had something to talk about as far as the Kentucky Derby is concerned.
Yeah. You probably made a lot of money this weekend. Rich Strike, who is an 8-1 shot. 8-1, I said. He ended up coming back from behind and winning the Kentucky Derby and winning over favorites like Epicenter. He was a favorite, but the story behind the horse. I'm glad that Mike Tirico, to the credit of whoever does the research for NBC, they were ready. Apparently, this horse wasn't even trained to race until a couple of months ago. So the fact that he was able to come on, the owners, they bought this horse I think last year about this time, and he was kind of just sort of an afterthought, and now they trained him, starting early this year. They didn't really think they would even be in the Derby. For that to happen to now, it's really sort of remarkable. So if you got 8-1, you had a very nice little payday there this weekend.
Yeah, I know Eddie Olczyk, the current NHL analyst for TNT, and of course locally here in Chicago for the Blackhawks. He always has some great insight as far as betting on horses is concerned. I should take a few tips from him. I'm like you. I do not have good luck when it comes to betting. We have strong indications of what could happen, and most of the times we're right, most times we're wrong. But horse racing, even though it's the number one sport in this country many neons ago, I really just can't get into it. But a whole lot of people get into it mostly because of the money. But
exactly, that's why. Well,
especially
now that gambling is now legal in a lot of areas, including here in Illinois. I think that's why there's more interest now than there was back then. Even years ago when horse racing was really big, back in the 70s and 80s, even early 90s.
Yeah.
But I think it all started to creep up a little bit. But of course, the treatment of the horses. I know some people are very, especially the way that horse treated after he won. He was being very excited, and he was the trainer was kind of slapping him around a little bit. That caused a little bit of a stir there too. So it is what it is, unfortunately, in that sense. But congrats to Rich Strike and their owners and their trainers. And I don't think we'll have a Kentucky Derby. I don't think we'll have a Derby, a Triple Crown this year, I should say. I don't think that's happening. I want to put it out there right now on May 9th.
All right, you heard from Lakeena, our horse racing expert. You're listening to Second City Sports on the Monday edition, live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. We have just a couple minutes left in today's show. Lakeena, I want to take this time to end it hopefully on a great note. I just want to pay tribute to a revolutionizing talk show that got started back on September 16th in 1989. It was on a network called Black Entertainment Television, also known as BET. I am talking about, of course, BET's Teen Summit. It was an American talk show for the youth that aired on BET from 1989 to August 31st, 2002. In recent years, it was returned as a very occasional special to the network schedule. The show was created by Chief Operating Officer Sheila Johnson and award-winning originating broadcast producer Tony Registers. Teen Summit dealt with the everyday issues teenagers face and attempted, often successfully, to bring them into perspective and in a positive, uplifting light, while motivating teen viewers and their families to discuss the subjects presented on the weekly 1-hour live show. After the original program host Lisa Johnson moved on in 1993, others filled in as hosts, including Ademu Cologne, of course, Ananda Lewis, famous alum. She went on to do big things with MTV for many years after that. And you had De Jour, who was the host in the mid-90s as well. Lakeena, do you remember the Posse Squad members who sat up in the front of that stage?
Oh yeah, that was
They really brought very good insight for those young people that had very strong opinions on tough subjects. But it was a great idea for BET to do at the time. We all know the big talk show hosts back in those days, like Oprah, Donahue really didn't do this, but Oprah, Ricky Lake, trash, but Ricky Lake, Montel Williams, yes, they had shows featuring teenage issues, but BET was the only show that dedicated, even though it was on every week, they get dedicated a 1 foot out to teen issues only. And you haven't seen a show before or on the air since.
Yeah,
and I say, could this show work today? But 2 words they'll stop there. It's called social media.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that it's not needed. Of course, it's desperately needed today. But social media has changed the game for everything today.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where I think about, especially to the fact that they actually weren't afraid to talk about issues like race and violence and STDs and all that. Yeah, they did the occasional stuff too, like talk about school and everything else and homework. I know they did an episode. I forgot what the topic was, but it sort of epitomized. It was sort of a forum for teens to talk about it and talk about various issues instead of in a forum where they probably couldn't talk to their adults or to their parents, especially, or grandparents, even older siblings. Now, unfortunately, it would not work now because you got TikTok, you got Facebook and Twitter, and it just also got YouTube as well. So, unfortunately, this format like this would not work. Now, is it needed? Absolutely, especially now with everything going on, with talking about tolerance and such, and the economy and COVID, COVID and the impact there of how it impacted teenagers. Definitely need an outlook for them, but unfortunately, you got folks that don't have that mindset. So unfortunately, that probably will never happen. But I think it would be great to have a Teen Summit type show on a network or on the or even at the very least on a streaming service. I mean, that would be great, so they can swear all over the place. But again, different times, and I feel like a show like the Teen Summit could probably work if you adapt to the 21st century, make it sense for 2020.
You're gonna have to, yes.
Also, you have a YouTube star, like a social media star or an influencer, someone who has a lot of followers, maybe host it and maybe kind of raise some credibility there and such. But yeah, that's pretty much what you gotta do. But go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, just a couple more notes about BET's Teen Summit show that ran through the 90s. They did win an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Children's Program, and they were known to have presidential candidates. I remember Bill Clinton, his wife, Hillary Rodham Clinton, as well. She appeared on that show many times, and you had guest music stars from the rap and hip hop and R&B worlds as well. I was watching the episode you can catch on YouTube right now. I was watching the episode last night from March 22nd, 1997. I know they may sound familiar to some hip hop heads like us. It was 2 weeks after Biggie Smalls was assassinated in Los Angeles. They did a show called Between New School and Old School Hip Hop, and they brought people on like Yo-Yo, Nonchalant, Chuck D from Public Enemy, Melly Mel, of course, Dub C and Mac 10 from the West Side Connection. Man, that was a group out of the West Coast from Ice Cube's camp, and they were talking about the difference between the old school hip hop and then the current hip hop at that time in the mid '90s, where it was really taking off onto the mainstream. How could they bridge that gap? But those are very interesting discussion. Please check it out on YouTube. Just type in BT Summit, and the episode will pop up right there. It was a very interesting discussion. So, like you said, those shows are needed, but like you said, you just have to do it in a different way now since we are in a different time.
Yeah, maybe have folks do it like we're doing it. Have people ask questions. Everybody has a computer or a laptop or a phone. Do it that way, or maybe have comments and such. So you have to get people to kind of police that, so it won't go a little over the top. But yeah, I think a show could work. But like you said, like we've been saying, you got to adapt it, to make it sense for now.
Yeah. And shout out to Ananda Lewis as well, because I almost forgot that, like I said, I couldn't watch it every week because I only had one TV that was that had cable, and that was my mom's TV, so I had to ask permission to watch it. I only had a certain amount of hours to watch it. Most of the time, I watched it for sports anyway. And so if you remember, BET's T Summit came on at noon Eastern, so that was 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Of course, at that time, NBA Inside Stuff was on, so I would watch that. And of course, Soul Train, especially during the years Don Cornelius was hosting, I was watching that too. So I couldn't watch it as much as I wanted, but whenever I caught it, usually it was the second half of that show because I was watching Inside Stuff and or Soul Train. I will watch the rest of Teen Summit. Of course, I got a chance to watch it a little bit more once I got to college. But it was a great show, very uplifting show. And those young people in that studio audience, along with the posse on the sitting next to the host, whoever was hosting at the time, they were very smart kids. I know people give us as a culture, as a race, the negative label. Oh, you just listen to sports and music. You're not smart enough on other topics. That was not true. You cannot put that stereotype on those young people, especially in that audience. It's not going to fly.
Yeah, that wasn't going to fly then. It's not going to fly now. And I wonder what Ananda Lewis is up to. I haven't seen her in a while, but I'd like to see what she's up to these days. I know she still works in media and such, but I would love to see what she's doing these days. Also, too, I know Lisa Johnson Smith. I believe. I think she and Charles are still married. I'm not sure, but I know that that's probably another reason why it happened. I think they wanted to have kids and such. So I think that's probably what happened with her. But yeah, so to me, like I said, BET has some great shows that kind of change the culture of certain things. Of course, that also 106 in Park. Unfortunately, it's
Rap
not how
City. Yep.
Yeah, Rap City. Oh yeah, Rap City. I loved Rap City. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not what it used to be. But
yeah, they sold it to Viacom. Bob Johnson did in 2001, and yeah.
Yeah. We'll just leave it.
We could talk about that all day.
That's another episode.
You're right.
That might be. We have to do that in podcast form. So
yes.
Probably. Yeah. Well, with that said, also do a quick note. James Bradbury, the third year corner from the Giants, has been released. So a veteran corner out on the market right now. Just could really fit the system. I know they tried to trade him during the draft. There were no takers. So a veteran guy out there on the market.
We'll see if the Bears pick him up and make him a crappy offer, but I digress.
With that said, on that note, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you catch this Second City Sports, the audio version on the podcast at War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Don't forget to type this in, WARR on Anchor on those podcast platforms. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Make sure you catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday, noon to 2 p.m. right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as you young folks would say. Catch Second City Sports live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time.
All right, I know it's gonna be warmer out there, folks, this week. But
So I
don't
can
act
heat
like fools.
wave. Woo,
I'll
woo.
say, don't act like fools out there, folks.
Next.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wear your mask if you're not gonna get vaccinated, and just be good to each other. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Enjoy the sports. Enjoy all the playoff, NBA and NHL, and also the baseball coming up as well. The great series this weekend, and just enjoy the sports. And this has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Go Sox. Holla.